Hello everybody, my presentation is about Steve Jobs' biography. He was born on February 14 of 1955 in San Francisco, California. His birth parents, Abdul Fattah Handali, a Syrian man who was a student of the University of Wisconsin and later became teacher in the same university. Janie Carolee Shively, Steve Jobs' mother, a Swiss-American Catholic woman who studied in Wisconsin too. They were the same age when Jobs was born. His father, Abdul Fattah Handali, taught marketing in Wisconsin University, and Janie Carolee Shively followed studying in the same. His biological parents put him in adoption because his maternal grandparents were disagreed with their relationship. Steve Jobs was going to be adopted for a college graduate family because his biological parents always wanted it. But finally they accepted and gave him in adoption to Paul Riholot Jobs, who worked as a mechanic and a carpenter. He never graduated in any university. He taught to Steven rudimentary electronics and how to work with his hands. So, Paul had a talent for manual dexterity. Besides, he showed to Steve how to work on electronics in the family garage, demonstrating him how to take apart and rebuild electronics such as radios and televisions. Steve Jobs, since a child, developed a skill at logical thinking. On the other hand, Clara Jobs, an American who was an accountant with a talent for mathematics. Also, she taught to Steve Jobs to read before he went to school. His biological parents get married and they had a second child, the novelist of literature Mona Simpson, in 1957. But they get divorced in 1962. The Steve Jobs family was going to live in San Francisco, but they moved to Mountain View, California, a city of Palo Alto South, because that city became to be the principal electronic industry. In this city, Steve Jobs attended at Cupertino Elementary School and the high school in Cupertino, California. In there, Steve Jobs became friends with Bill Fernandez, a neighbor who shared the same interest in electronics, and Bill Fernandez introduced to Steve Jobs to Steve Wozniak, who lived in the same neighborhood. He was an engineer computer and a specialist electronics, so he had a talent for mathematics ability and a skill at logical thinking. Steve Jobs might have had a lot of interest in the electronic and gates to join to a club named Hewlett-Packard Explorer Club, where Hewlett-Packard engineers Jobs showed their new products. In there, Steve Jobs saw a computer for first time, and he might have been impressed with that computer because he immediately knew he would create computers. In 1972, Steve Jobs enrolled at Reed College in Portland, Oregon, but Reed was an expensive college. Paul and Clara were spending much of their life saving on their son's Harvard education. So Steve Jobs dropped out of college after 6 months and spent the next 18 months dropping and create classes, including a course on calligraphy. He continued ordering classes at Reed while he slept on the floor in friend's room. Also, he returned Coke bottles for food and for money, Also, he got weekly free meals at the local Hare Krishna temple. He hadn't persisted in electronic and calligraphy, and he hadn't worked as technic in the games company Atari Inc., where collaborate in the creation of the game Breakout. Besides, he might have learned very good the calligraphy because this art helped him to create the typography of the first Mac. So he had extensive knowledge of electronic and artistic ability in computers. Also, he had skills at logical thinking. Steve Jobs later said, "If I had never dropped in on the single calligraphy course in college, the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts." In 1978, Steve Jobs had a daughter, Lisa Nicole Brennan Jobs. He might have been a rich young because he was 30 years and he continued his business career and he founded Next Computer Inc. Years later, he might have made a big company in his garage with his friend Steve Wozniak, having success in the Apple II, being in that time the magazine Times from in 1982. He might not have put much effort in the entry of powerful competitors in the market, because those create difficulties, but afterwards he only thought in to create to innovate his company, making the Macintosh 128K, first personality computer that he and his friends saw success. Those used graphical user interface and a mouse underside of command line. In 1991, Steve Jobs got married with Lawrence Powell. They had a child named Fred Paul Jobs, 1991, Erin Sina Jobs, 1995, and Eve Jobs in 1998. Apple may have been better than Exxon for its sales because he was the largest individual shareholder of entertainment, Disney. He might have been very rich, having a fortune of 8,300 millions, occupying the part 110 on the list of great fortunes of Forbes magazine. It was so good that he acquired the company's subsidiary Lucasfilm in Pixar. He could have revolutionized very good the animation industry with Toy Story. Besides, in 2009 he had the 25% in music sales in the United States, which was the largest music store in volumes. Also, it is important to say that 317 patents of Steve Jobs include name of Apple. In 2003, he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, but if he might not have the need to be operated, he hadn't died on 5 October of 2011.